Hello, this is how to use virtiofs to share a directory between a Linux virtual machine and the Linux host that hosts the virtualization software. First of all, we're going to install the virtiofs. The host operating system is Ubuntu 25.10. So that's sudo apt install virtiofs. It's already installed. Next up, we're going to create a directory on the host operating system. In my home directory, I'm going to create a directory named vshare. And then I'm going to set the virtual machine. I'm using a virtual machine manager. This is the virtual machine that we want to edit. It's Ubuntu 26.04. And at the tab memory, we need to enable the checkbox enable shared memory, apply, and then we want to add hardware of type file system, driver virtiofs, and source path is the directory that we have just created. Let's copy paste the full path. And target path is similar to a tag, so we're going to name it vshare. And we're going to have the directory shared between the virtual machine and the host be read-write. So we're not checking the checkbox export file system as read-only mount. Finish. At this point, we want to start the virtual machine. Log in. It's a very fresh installation of the virtual machine. Finish. And we're going to need the terminal application. And similar to the host where we have installed the binary package virtiofs, we're going to need to also install it inside the Linux guest, inside the virtual machine. Sudo apt install virtiofs. Continue. Okay, we're going to need a directory for the shared directory. We're going to name it the exact same way as on the host machine. And we're going to add the mount to the /etc/fs tab. As long as the virtual machine is running, the shared directory will exist. We will not need to run from the command line mount command. So let's do that. Let's become super user first. /etc/fs tab. And at the very end of the file, we're going to have the tag, so vshare, and then where, it's better if you just paste the full path if you don't write it using the keyboard. So vshare, which is the tag, then /home/administrator /vshare, the full path to the directory. Type, file system type virtiofs. virtiofs defaults 0 and 0. And that's it. So vshare /home/administrator /vshare virtiofs defaults 0 0. Control X to exit, save modified buffer Y, enter. And now we want to mount all of the file systems. Okay. It says that it's a good idea to run systemctl daemon -reload. Let's look at the mounted file systems. And hopefully everything just worked. Let's prove that that's the case. So as the user administrator, not the user root, we're going to change into the directory ~vshare. It's there. Let's create some files from the host and make sure they appear in the guest and vice versa. Let's make a directory. So directory created in the host. And it's in here. Let's create a file. File created in the guest.txt. Control X, Y, enter. Permission is denied. Why is that? Okay, so from what I see, the directories created in the host have a known user ID and group ID, which is 1001, but then the username is not known and the group name is not known. So probably we need to configure a mapping of the users and groups between the host operating system and the guest operating system. Otherwise, we're going to need to be the user root in both the virtual machine and the hardware machine when we want to share files. So we have two different users. In the virtual machine, we have just one user that's not the user root, and this user was created during the installer and it's named administrator. Its user ID and group ID is 1000, whereas on the host, the current user is named N and has a different user ID 1001 and different group ID 1001. So probably what you want here is to just use the user root in both virtual machine and the hardware machine. Maybe other possibilities are you create a user that's named N with the user ID 1001 and the group ID 1001 also in the virtual machine. Or you do Unix style, Linux style directory security ownership. So you change the shown for the directory vshare such that both these users, administrator in the guest and in the host, can access the files and read and write to this directory /vshare, which is the shared directory. So let's see here how we would use the user root everywhere and just not have any concern for user IDs, user groups, and group IDs. Let's become super user in both places, the virtual machine and the hardware machine. And that's it. Maybe make sure you have a text user interface file manager such as Midnight Commander installed on both machines. And that's it. Make sure that everything is owned by the user root. So that would be the directory is not owned by the user root. Chown -r root and the directory. Okay, and now we can start creating files, doing everything that you want. Hello from the virtual machine. And you have access to the contents from both the virtual machine and the host machine. Unfortunately, there's a very regular Linux style VFS file system with everything. So for support for all of the native Linux things such as ownership, chown, as the mod bits, chmod, maybe also ACLs work, symlinks, etc. So you're going to need to find a way to use the same directory from two different machines where the sets of Linux users is going to be different on the two machines. So this is it. This is how to share a directory between a virtual machine using QEMU virt-manager and the host Linux operating system. We have used the virtiofs file system and virtiofs daemon. Thank you.